Samantha Wright stood at the viewport of the small transport ship, watching as the massive conclave station grew larger against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars. Her reflection stared back at her, tall, with short brown hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. The crisp blue uniform she wore felt strange after years in military gear. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. 10 minutes to docking, Commander." Samantha nodded even though no one could see her. 6 months ago, humanity had made first contact with the Galactic Conclave, a coalition of advanced alien species that ruled most of the known galaxy. The aliens had deemed humans primitive, but potentially useful. After weeks of limited communication, the Conclave had issued their terms. Earth could send one unarmed representative to negotiate humanity's future role, one person to determine the fate of billions. Samantha remembered Admiral Mason's words when he'd given her the assignment. "You're a soldier who became a diplomat. You understand both worlds. That's what we need." She had argued against it. "Sir, there are better diplomats. I'm just a Marine who got good at talking." "No, right. You're exactly what we need. Someone who thinks like a warrior but speaks like a friend." The transport shuddered as docking clamps engaged. Samantha took a deep breath and straightened her jacket. She carried no weapons. The conclave scanners would detect even a hidden knife, but she had been trained to view her mind as her most important asset. That at least the aliens couldn't take from her. When the airlock opened, Samantha faced her welcoming committee, 3 representatives of the dominant conclave species. The Vargosi delegate stood nearly 7 feet tall, reptilian and imposing with crimson scales and eyes that conveyed only cold calculation. Beside him, the Niriani representative seemed almost human until you noticed the slight blue tint to her skin and the way her eyes shifted colors as she studied Samantha. The third alien, a Zentari, looked more machine than organic, a metallic body with glowing circuitry visible beneath transparent panels. "I am Krell," the Vargosi said, his translator rendering his hisses into flat English. "This is Sela of the Niriani and Lisa Kai of the Zentari. We will oversee your participation in the conclave discussions." Samantha bowed slightly. "Commander Samantha Wright, representing Earth. I look forward to productive negotiations." Krell made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Negotiations suggest equal standing. Your world has much to learn about its place in the galactic order." They led her through corridors filled with species she had never imagined. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with dismissal, a few with what seemed like pity. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, a city in space that housed representatives from hundreds of worlds. Her quarters were small but comfortable. After her escorts left, Samantha sat on the edge of the bed and pressed her hand against her temple, activating the subdermal communicator disguised as a simple medical implant. The quantum encrypted device had passed the conclave scans as permitted medical technology. "Earth Command, Ambassador Wright reporting in. I've arrived safely. First impressions confirm our suspicions. They see us as primitives to be managed, not equals to be respected." Admiral Mason's voice came through clearly in her mind. "Understood, Wright. Remember the mission. Learn, observe, find their weaknesses. We're playing the long game here. What if their technology is as advanced as it seems? We'd have no chance in a direct conflict. Then make sure it doesn't come to that. You're our secret weapon, Wright. Not because you can fight, but because you can think in ways they don't expect." After disconnecting, Samantha spent hours reviewing the materials she'd been given about conclave protocols. The next morning, dressed in her formal diplomatic uniform, she entered the vast chamber where representatives from across the galaxy gathered to decide the fate of worlds. The conclave hall was built like an amphitheater, with delegates seated according to their species status. Earth, as a new and unproven world, had been assigned a spot in the lowest tier. Samantha took her place with dignity, aware of the hundreds of alien eyes watching her. High Admiral Zorax of the Vargosi opened the session. "We welcome the human representative and begin formal assessment of Earth's petition for recognized status within the conclave. Our preliminary findings suggest Category 7 classification would be appropriate." Samantha had studied the categories. 7 meant Earth would be little more than a resource world, harvested for the benefit of more advanced civilizations. Humans would be restricted to their solar system, their development controlled and limited. She stood waiting to be recognized. Minutes passed as delegates deliberately ignored her. Finally, when the discussion had nearly moved on, Sila the Niriani gestured toward her. The human wishes to speak. How quaint. Let us hear what primitive wisdom Earth offers. Samantha stepped forward, keeping her expression neutral despite the insult. Thank you, representatives of the conclave. Earth is honored to join this gathering of advanced civilizations. Before discussions continue regarding our classification, I request access to the historical records of how other worlds were evaluated. This will help me better understand the criteria and represent my planet's interests fairly. The request was simple, reasonable, and completely unexpected. The conclave operated on assumptions of power. New species were expected to accept their assigned place without question. By asking for transparency, Samantha had revealed the first chink in their system. Krell hissed something untranslatable. Lisa Kai, the Zentari representative, tilted her metallic head. The human makes an interesting request. Our protocols do not forbid sharing classification precedents. After brief debate, Samantha was granted limited access to the records. That evening, as she reviewed the data in her quarters, she found exactly what she'd suspected. Dozens of worlds with considerable potential, reduced to resource colonies through arbitrary classifications. Species subjugated not because they were truly primitive, but because they had been too compliant during their initial conclave contact. Earth would not make the same mistake. In her daily report to Admiral Mason, Samantha allowed herself a small smile. Phase 1 complete. They've given me access to their playbook. Now I can start changing the rules. Excellent work, Wright, came the reply. Remember, you may be alone up there, but you carry all of humanity with you. Samantha looked out at the stars, thinking of Earth so far away. They think I'm unarmed, she whispered. They don't realize that makes me more dangerous, not less. 3 weeks passed on the conclave station. Samantha spent her days in meetings and her nights studying the vast archives she had been granted access to. She learned more about the power structures of the conclave than any outsider was meant to know. Most new species took years to understand what she had pieced together in days. The Zentari representative, Lisa Kai, requested a private meeting with Samantha in the station's garden dome. Unlike the harsh lighting of the meeting chambers, here artificial sunlight filtered through real plants from 100 worlds. Lisa's metallic body gleamed as she walked beside Samantha. You are not what we expected, Commander Wright, Lisa said, her voice musical despite coming from a mechanical body. What did you expect? Samantha asked. Fear, confusion, compliance. Lisa stopped beside a blue flower that closed its petals as they approached. The Vargosi insisted humans would quickly accept Category 7 status if we displayed enough strength. Samantha smiled slightly. Humans have a long history of responding poorly to intimidation, so I have observed. Lisa turned her glowing eyes toward Samantha. I should inform you that these negotiations are largely ceremonial. The decision to limit Earth's sovereignty was made before you arrived. Instead of showing anger or surprise, Samantha nodded. I suspected as much. Thank you for your honesty. You are not upset? Lisa's head tilted with curiosity. Knowing the true situation is always better than operating under illusions. Samantha reached out to touch the closed blue flower, and to Lisa's surprise, it slowly opened again. Even predetermined, games can be changed if you understand the rules well enough. Later that day, Samantha faced Krell, the Vargosi delegate, in what was supposed to be a formal discussion of Earth's resource management. The large reptilian alien loomed over her, his scales darkening with what she had learned was a sign of aggression. Your requests for additional information are becoming tiresome, human. Krell hissed. Know your place. Earth will provide what the conclave requires. That is the natural order. Advanced civilizations utilize the resources of lesser ones. Several other delegates watched the exchange. Samantha felt the weight of their attention. This was a test. Would the human representative back down when directly challenged? With respect, Delegate Krell, Samantha said calmly. My understanding of natural order differs from yours. In nature, the most successful species are not always the strongest, but the most adaptable. Krell moved closer, using his size to intimidate. Are you suggesting humans are superior to the Vargosi? We who traveled the stars when your ancestors were still discovering fire? Not at all, Samantha replied, not backing away despite his looming presence. I'm suggesting that different evolutionary paths create different strengths. The Vargosi conquered through force. Humans survived through adaptation. Without weapons, without your technology, what strength do you have? Krell demanded, his tail swishing dangerously close to her. Samantha smiled. You misunderstand our definition of unarmed, Delegate Krell. I don't need weapons to be dangerous. The room went quiet. Even Krell seemed surprised by her calm defiance. The meeting ended shortly after, with Samantha having neither backed down nor escalated the confrontation. That evening, as she prepared her daily report to Earth, Samantha was interrupted by a knock at her door. She opened it to find a small alien she hadn't met before, humanoid but with green-tinted skin and large expressive eyes. Commander Wright? I am John Rivera, representative of the Outer Rim Alliance. He spoke softly, glancing down the corridor. May I come in, briefly? Samantha let him enter, curious about this unexpected visitor. I'll be direct, Rivera said once the door closed. Many of the smaller worlds have been watching you. Your approach is unusual. The way you question the Conclave's assumptions has not gone unnoticed. I'm just representing Earth's interests, Samantha said carefully. Rivera smiled. Of course, as we all do, but the Conclave has operated unchallenged for centuries. The dominant species, the Vargosi, Niriani, and Zentari, maintain their power by keeping other worlds isolated from each other. He leaned forward. Yet here you are, speaking directly with representatives from dozens of worlds, asking questions no one has asked in generations. Is that why you're here? To warn me? To thank you, Rivera corrected, and to let you know that not everyone in the Conclave supports the current hierarchy. Many worlds resent their classifications but lack the means to challenge them. After Rivera left, Samantha activated her neural implant. Admiral Mason, something unexpected is happening. We may have allies we didn't anticipate. Explain, came Mason's reply. The Conclave isn't as unified as they want us to believe. The smaller worlds, the ones classified like they want to classify us, they're watching what we do, how we respond. Can we trust them? Not yet, Samantha said. But they're afraid of the same powers that want to control Earth. That gives us common ground. The next day, Samantha made a bold move. During a cultural exchange session, where new species typically displayed their artistic achievements for Conclave approval, she introduced something unexpected: human music. The simple melody filled the chamber, causing conversations to stop, as delegates turned to listen. When it ended, Sela, the Niriani representative, approached her. This creates an unusual resonance pattern. How do you call this form? We call it harmony, Samantha explained. Different notes that sound beautiful together because of their differences, not despite them. An interesting concept, Sela said, her eyes shifting through colors as she processed the idea. Perhaps there is more to learn from Earth than we anticipated. That night, as Samantha recorded her observations, she felt a shift in the station's atmosphere. The Conclave had expected a primitive species grateful for attention. Instead, they found a representative who questioned their foundations, who spoke of different ways to view power, who suggested that diversity might be strength rather than weakness, and they weren't sure what to do about it. Phase 2 is progressing faster than expected, she reported to Earth. They're listening now, not because they respect us yet, but because we've confused them, and confusion creates opportunity. Admiral Mason's voice came back clear and confident. Keep pushing, Wright. The fleet will be ready when you need us. Not a combat fleet, Samantha reminded him. No, Mason agreed. Something far more powerful. 2 months into her assignment, Samantha had become an unexpected fixture in Conclave discussions. What began as tolerance for the human representative had evolved into something resembling respect, at least among some delegates. She moved through the station with growing confidence, no longer drawing stares of curiosity or disdain. The true turning point came during a trade dispute between the Neriani and Zentari. The two species had argued for decades over mining rights in a shared star system. What should have been a simple negotiation had become entangled in centuries of cultural misunderstandings. Samantha sat quietly during the initial arguments, watching, as translators struggled to convey complex concepts between the two species. When the session broke for recess, she approached Sela and Lisa Kai separately. "The problem isn't the mining rights," she told Lisa. "It's that the Neriani view the asteroids as sacred objects, not resources." To Sela, she said, "The Zentari don't understand why you won't mine the outer belt. To them, unused resources are wasteful, almost offensive to their cultural values." When the session resumed, Samantha requested speaking rights. "With respect to both delegations, I believe I see a path forward. The Neriani consider the inner asteroid belt sacred because the unique radiation patterns match their ancestral religious texts. The outer belt has no such significance." She displayed a simple diagram on the chamber's projection system. "If the Zentari focus their operations here, while establishing processing centers that employ Neriani workers here, both worlds benefit economically while respecting cultural boundaries." The chamber fell silent. The solution was elegant in its simplicity. "How did you know about our sacred texts?" Sela asked, her eyes shifting through shades of purple and blue. "I've been studying conclave archives," Samantha replied. "Your people submitted cultural information during your initial contact 300 years ago. It's all there in the historical records." The dispute that had lasted for decades was resolved in an afternoon. Word spread quickly through the station. The human had succeeded where generations of mediators had failed. That evening, John Rivera visited again, this time bringing two other representatives from smaller worlds. "You've made an impression, Commander," he said. "The Outer Rim worlds are talking about your approach." "I'm just trying to find common ground," Samantha said modestly. "That's exactly it," a delegate from a water world said, her gills fluttering with excitement. "The Conclave has always emphasized our differences, using them to categorize and separate us. You look for connections instead." After her visitors left, Samantha received an official message. Her presence was requested at tomorrow's High Council meeting, a rare honor for a representative from an unclassified world. When she entered the council chamber the next day, she found all 7 High Counselors present, the 3 dominant species plus 4 rotating members. Krell, representing the Vargosi, looked particularly displeased. "Commander Wright," the Zentari council member began, "your resolution of the mining dispute has drawn attention. Some suggest you have a gift for mediation." "I simply observed and listened," Samantha replied. Krell hissed. "Others suggest you are deliberately undermining conclave authority by encouraging direct negotiations between species rather than following proper hierarchical channels." Samantha kept her expression neutral. "The conclave's purpose, as stated in your founding documents, is to promote peace and cooperation among diverse species. My actions support those goals." "Your actions bypass established protocols," Krell countered, "and we have noted your meetings with representatives from minor worlds. Some might view this as incitement." The accusation hung in the air. Incitement of rebellion was a serious charge that could result in Earth's immediate exclusion from the Conclave. Samantha had prepared for this moment. From her datapad, she displayed a series of records on the chamber's main screen. "These are corruption reports from the past 50 years. Note the pattern of resource allocations to Vargosi-controlled worlds, particularly those overseen by Councillor Krell's family line." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Krell's scales darkened to almost black with rage. "You dare to accuse a High Counselor?" he roared. "I'm not accusing anyone," Samantha replied calmly. "I'm simply sharing information from your own archives, which any representative has the right to access." If this information concerns you, perhaps the council should investigate. The Niriani counselor's eyes flashed with interest. Where did you find these records, human? In the public archives, Samantha said, though they were filed under obscure classification codes. I have an eye for patterns. The hearing that had been meant to discipline her instead turned into an inquiry about conclave transparency. By the session's end, a committee had been formed to investigate the resource allocation patterns she had identified. As she left the chamber, Lisa Kai fell into step beside her. That was unexpected. The Vargosi will not forget this challenge. I didn't challenge them, Samantha said. I just shared information that was already there. Lisa's mechanical eyes studied her. You're either very brave or very foolish, Commander Wright. Perhaps both. Later that day, Samantha received more visitors, representatives from species she had barely interacted with before. Word had spread about how she had turned the tables on Krell. Some came out of curiosity, others to congratulate her, and some simply to assess this human who had disrupted conclave politics. She shared stories of Earth with them, its diverse cultures, its democratic systems, its music and art. The concept of representation based on population, rather than technological, advancement fascinated many delegates whose worlds had been classified as primitive, despite rich cultural traditions. On Earth, all voices matter, she explained. Power comes from the people, not from technology or military strength. A strange concept, one delegate observed, but appealing. That night, in her secure communication with Admiral Mason, Samantha reported the day's events. Something is happening here that we didn't plan for. The smaller worlds are looking to Earth as a model for change. Is that a problem? Mason asked. No, Samantha replied after consideration. It's an opportunity. The conclave isn't just a governing body, it's an idea about how species should interact, and ideas can be changed. And the fleet? Mason asked. Keep to the schedule, Samantha said. But emphasize the diplomatic training. Every person we send needs to understand what we're really doing here. Which is what, exactly? Mason pressed. Samantha looked out at the stars. We're not fighting the conclave, sir. We're transforming it not with weapons but with a different way of thinking. As she ended the transmission, a message arrived from the High Council. Earth's classification hearing had been moved up. In 1 week, the conclave would vote on humanity's place in the galactic order. Samantha smiled. They still didn't understand. They thought this was about categories and hierarchies. They hadn't realized yet that the game itself was changing. The news of Earth's upcoming classification hearing spread quickly through the conclave station. Samantha spent the days leading up to it meeting with representatives from dozens of worlds, building relationships that would have been unthinkable when she first arrived. Her quarters had become an unofficial gathering place where ideas flowed freely outside the rigid protocols of official sessions. John Rivera brought news that troubled her. The Vargosi are pushing for a Category 8 classification for Earth, he said. Samantha frowned. Category 8 meant quarantine, no travel beyond the solar system, no communications with other species, no trade. It was reserved for truly dangerous worlds. On what grounds? She asked. Krell claims humans are culturally aggressive and pose a threat to conclave stability. Rivera's expression was grim. Many believe it's retaliation for your exposure of the corruption patterns. Samantha considered this new challenge. Who supports this classification? The Vargosi, of course, and their client worlds. Rivera lowered his voice. But the Niriani and Zentari haven't committed. Without their support, Krell can't secure the votes. That evening, a surprise visitor arrived, Sela, the Niriani representative. Her skin seemed paler than usual, her eyes shifting through anxious colors. Something has happened, she said without preamble. One of our research vessels made a discovery that has caused concern. Samantha gestured for her to continue. They were studying the effects of various energy frequencies on different species' neural patterns. Sela's eyes settled on a deep blue. Human brains show a unique structure. When exposed to specific frequencies, your brains create patterns that can disrupt telepathic networks. Samantha kept her expression neutral, but her mind raced. The Narayani and several other conclave species relied on telepathy for their communications networks. If humans could naturally disrupt these frequencies, is this why Krell is pushing for quarantine? She asked. Partly, Sela admitted, but there's more. Analysis shows humans have exceptional neuroplasticity. Your brains form new connections at rates we've never observed in any species. You solve problems differently. The Vargosi see this as evidence that humans might be unpredictable, dangerous. And what do the Niriani think? Samantha asked carefully. Sela's eyes shifted to purple. We find it fascinating, frightening, yes, but also full of potential. Some of my people believe interaction with human thought patterns could enhance our own abilities. After Sela left, Samantha immediately contacted Admiral Mason. This unexpected development changed everything. So they've discovered what makes humans special, Mason said when she finished explaining. Our adaptability. They see it as a threat, Samantha replied, but some see potential in it. Perfect timing, Mason said. The fleet reaches your position in 3 days. Samantha felt a chill. Sir, if they detect a human fleet approaching, during these deliberations they'll take it as confirmation of their fears. They'll vote for quarantine immediately. Trust me, Wright. This fleet won't frighten them, at least not in the way you think. The day of the classification hearing arrived. The conclave hall was filled beyond capacity, with delegates from hundreds of worlds attending. This was no longer just about Earth status. It had become a referendum on conclave governance itself. High Admiral Zorax of the Vargosi opened the proceedings. We gather to determine the place of humanity within galactic civilization. Evidence suggests humans represent a unique challenge to established order. A holographic display activated, showing brain scans and data patterns. Research confirms humans possess neurological features that could disrupt sensitive communication systems. Furthermore, their social structures prioritize individual freedoms over hierarchical stability. We recommend Category 8 classification. Quarantine until further assessment can be completed. Murmurs filled the chamber. Category 8 was rarely imposed and never on a species that hadn't demonstrated actual aggression. Samantha stood when recognized. Delegates of the conclave, the qualities described as dangerous are the same qualities that allowed humanity to survive and thrive on a challenging world. Our adaptability, our creativity, our drive to connect and communicate. These aren't threats. They're gifts that we wish to share. She moved to the center of the chamber. We don't seek to disrupt the conclave. We seek to join it, but as equals, not as subjects. The hierarchical system that has governed galactic relations for centuries has brought stability, yes, but at the cost of innovation and growth. Krell interrupted, his voice booming. Empty words. While this human speaks of peace, our sensors detect a fleet of Earth vessels approaching conclave space. This proves their duplicity. The chamber erupted in shouts and questions. Samantha remained calm as Zorax demanded explanation. Yes, Earth has sent ships, she acknowledged when silence finally returned. Not warships, but diplomatic vessels. 10,000 human ambassadors, each trained in the methods I've demonstrated here. Not to conquer or threaten, but to connect. The statement shocked the assembly. No species had ever sent so many representatives at once. What is the meaning of this? Zorax demanded. It means Earth rejects your categories, Samantha said firmly. We didn't come to join your hierarchy. We came to offer an alternative. She activated her own holographic display, showing a new structure, a network rather than a pyramid, with connections between worlds based on mutual benefit rather than power. This is what humanity proposes. A galactic federation rather than a conclave. Equal representation for all worlds. Collaborative problem-solving, shared growth. The chamber fell silent as the delegates studied the proposal. Then Lisa Kai, representing the Zentari High Council, spoke. The human proposal has merit from an efficiency standpoint. Our data shows the current hierarchical system has resulted in a 27% decrease in technological innovation over the past century. Stagnation threatens all species, Sela added her voice. The Neriani find human thought patterns complementary to our own. Limited testing suggests collaboration could enhance both species' abilities. Quarantine would eliminate this potential. Krell hissed in frustration. You would dismantle centuries of order because of pretty words? This human has been here mere months. No, Samantha corrected. Not because of words. Because the current system serves the few at the expense of the many. Because evolution, biological and social, requires adaptation. John Rivera stepped forward. The Outer Rim Alliance supports Earth's proposal. For too long, our worlds have been exploited while our voices went unheard. We are ready for change. One by one, representatives from dozens of worlds voiced support. Not all. Many of the privileged species opposed the idea fiercely, but enough to create unprecedented division in the normally orderly conclave. As the session ended in disarray, with no vote taken on Earth's classification, Samantha received an urgent message from the approaching fleet. Package has arrived, awaiting your signal. She smiled. Phase 3 was complete. Now for the final step. The days following Earth's proposal became the most chaotic in conclave history. Emergency sessions ran continuously as factions formed, alliances shifted, and centuries of political structure began to crack. At the center of it all stood Samantha. Right, no longer just Earth's representative, but the face of a movement that spread through the station like wildfire. Krell and the Vargosi delegation pushed for immediate military action against the approaching human fleet. They must be turned back or destroyed before they contaminate the conclave with their dangerous ideas, he argued in the High Council chamber. But the Zentari, always practical, had run their calculations. The humans bring no weapons, Lisa, Kai pointed out. Our scans confirm their ships carry only people and basic supplies. There is no tactical justification for aggression. The true shock came when 3 Vargosi colony worlds publicly refused to supply military vessels for any action against Earth. Their representatives announced that they would no longer accept Category 5 classification. They demanded reconsideration under the proposed Federation model. Sela brought the news to Samantha's quarters. It's unprecedented, she said, her eyes cycling through colors of excitement and concern. No subject world has ever directly refused Vargosi commands. It was always possible, Samantha replied. They just needed to see that change was possible. The conclave station transformed as more representatives broke from traditional protocol. Species that had never directly communicated began tentative diplomatic exchanges. Worlds that had been exploited for resources found their grievances suddenly heard by powerful allies. 4 days after the hearing, Samantha received official permission for the human fleet to dock. The ships were smaller than typical conclave vessels but elegantly designed. From them emerged the promised ambassadors, teachers, artists, scientists, diplomats, each assigned to work with specific worlds that had requested human representatives. Admiral Mason himself led the first group to board the station. He found Samantha waiting at the docking bay looking more confident than when she had left Earth months ago. Impressive work, Commander, he said as they walked through the corridors. When we planned this mission, we hoped for acceptance. We never expected to spark a revolution. Not a revolution, Samantha corrected. An evolution. The conclave wasn't evil, just stuck. They built a system that worked for certain species at a certain time. But the galaxy changed, and their system didn't. Mason nodded. And the package? Ready for deployment at the right moment. That moment came sooner than expected. The High Council called an emergency session to address the growing crisis. For the first time in conclave history, representatives from all classified worlds were permitted to attend, not just the dominant species. High Admiral Zorax opened the proceedings with unexpected humility. The events of recent weeks have shown that change is needed. The question before us is, what form should that change take? Krell immediately objected. This human has seduced the Conclave with impossible promises. Their so-called Federation would collapse into chaos without proper hierarchy. Samantha stood to respond, but before she could speak, doors around the chamber opened. Into the room walked the human ambassadors, not as a unified bloc, but dispersed among the representatives of the worlds they had been assigned to. The visual impact was powerful, humans integrated throughout the assembly rather than segregated. The package I brought isn't a weapon or a document, Samantha explained. It's a demonstration. Each human ambassador has spent months studying the culture, needs, and potential of their assigned world. They're here to listen and learn, not dictate or demand. One by one, humans and their partner species described the collaborative projects they had already begun: educational exchanges, technological adaptations, cultural preservation efforts. None imposed Earth's ways, but all shared Earth's approach to problem-solving and cooperation. A representative from a water world spoke of how a human marine biologist had already helped them develop a new harvesting technique that increased yields while reducing environmental impact. A desert species explained how solar technology from Earth could transform their energy systems within months, rather than the decades the Conclave had projected. Even the most skeptical delegates could not deny the energy in the chamber. This wasn't just talk of change, it was change already happening. Lisa Kai, ever practical, presented a formal analysis. The Zentari High Council has evaluated the Federation proposal. Our models predict a 64% increase in technological advancement and a 78% decrease in resource conflicts under the proposed system. Logic dictates we support this transition. Sela added the Niriani perspective. Our telepaths have scanned the human representatives. Their intentions match their words. They seek genuine partnership, not dominance, Krell hissed in frustration. And if we refuse, will these unarmed humans simply accept our decision? Samantha met his gaze. Yes, we will. That's the point you've never understood, Krell. Force isn't the only form of power. Sometimes the strongest position is being willing to walk away rather than compromise your principles. She turned to address the entire assembly. Earth doesn't need to join the Conclave. We've lived in isolation for our entire history. We can continue to do so if necessary, but we believe we're stronger together. All of us, not just humans and not just the traditionally powerful species. The debate continued for hours, then days. Not all worlds embraced the Federation concept. Some, particularly those who benefited most from the old system, resisted fiercely. But the momentum had shifted. 1 year after Samantha Wright first arrived at the Conclave Station, the Galactic Federation was formally established. The rigid hierarchy of classifications was replaced with a representative council where all member worlds had a voice. Trade agreements were renegotiated based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. Cultural exchange programs flourished. Earth took its place not as a leader imposing its will, but as a connector helping diverse species find common ground. Human ambassadors became valued mediators throughout the galaxy, their adaptable minds, bridging gaps between radically different forms of life and thought. On the day the Federation Charter was signed, a monument was unveiled in the station's central plaza, a simple human figure, hands empty, with an inscription in all major galactic languages. The most powerful weapon in the universe is an idea whose time has come. Back on Earth, Admiral Mason stood in the control room watching the live transmission of the ceremony. The president joined him, her expression thoughtful. "Did you know this would happen when you sent her?" she asked. Mason smiled. "We knew Wright was special. We knew humans think differently. But this?" He gestured at the screen showing representatives from hundreds of worlds celebrating together. "This exceeded our wildest hopes. We sent an unarmed ambassador," the president mused. "No," Mason corrected. "We sent humanity's most dangerous weapon, hope." In her new office on the station, now renamed Unity Point, Samantha looked out at the stars. When she had first arrived, she had felt alone against a vast, indifferent galaxy. Now she saw connections everywhere, between worlds, between species, between ideas. Sometimes the most profound revolutions didn't come from weapons or wars. Sometimes they came from simply asking, what if there's a better way? The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would humanity.